philosophical approach to 2021 edition of the Always Irish Show. As always, you can find the show in full video format on the popular website known as youtube.com. Do subscribe if you haven't done so yet. I do appreciate that. And if you like the content of the video, give it a thumbs up afterwards. On Twitter, you could type in the search bar Always Irish or at JKZND4. Emails alwaysirishnd@gmail.com. Merchandise link in the description. Audio only. You could get me wherever you want me, okay? Like, sub, share, comment, write mean things. I don't care what you do. I just like the interaction. So this is a very interesting topic. The theme is right along the lines of what I talk about all the time on this show. And there's some nuance with this article that we need to talk about and parse through. Ultra interesting topic. Total correlation to the things I talk about. Let's get into it and let's go. So if you've been around my channel any amount of time, you know by now my theme as Notre Dame enters 2021 is a practical, existential, and philosophical dilemma and question of, are we finally to the point where we are reloading and not rebuilding after losing a bunch of players to the NFL, transfers, new defensive coordinator, new quarterback, all that stuff? This article hits on that theme. The title of it was Another College Football Playoff Berth or Developing Young Talent, Pick Your Poison. Now, on the surface, the title of this article is clickbaity in nature, which I get. That's how you get more reads, more clicks, more watches on YouTube. I'm in that game too. You got to make a title appealing on Twitter or to your YouTube video to entice people to click on it. I totally understand that. But I feel like many people on Twitter did not read the article, but rather just responded to the title of it with outrage, saying, of course we would choose a playoff berth again over developing young talent. So there was a lot of that underneath this title that was tweeted out. I don't think a lot of people read the full article, but on the surface, it seems like a no-brainer, and I don't think that's up for debate, that if you could reach the playoff again, and it's so rare and hard to do, especially at Notre Dame, you would want another bite at that apple. I totally understand that. I don't think that's up for debate. But after reading the full article, I think Hayden asked many of the same questions I've been asking. Will we see an attempt to modernize the Notre Dame offense in 2021? What about the young players, particularly at quarterback? Is he going to get to start? Buckner, when I say he, is he going to get to start? Is he going to get to play 4 games but stay under the eligibility so he doesn't lose a year? What's the plan here? Do you get Buckner going, or do you go with the ultra game manager, Jack Cohn? Not meant to be an insult. That's not meant to be an insult to Jack Cohn. But his history suggests he's an ultra game manager. Nobody's suggesting he's Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Burrows, none of that kind of stuff. He's an ultra efficient game manager, okay? So do you get Buckner going early with all these young guys, try and modernize the offense before you get into the tougher schedules in a couple years? Or do you go with Cohn and try to make the playoff doing things the way we have been? And the point of this article was Hayden saying if you go with Cohn, the game manager, and keep things the same, even if you do make the playoff, you're going to get the exact same results we've gotten the last 2 times in the playoff. I can't argue with that because I agree with that, especially if the offense doesn't look visibly more modern, vertical, and up to date, okay, compared to what we've been running. So that's the question. What exactly will happen if you keep things the same and then you install a game manager? How are you setting up the future at that point? How are you getting those guys ready for 22 and 23, 22 especially when you start the year at Ohio State. Okay, so these are very fair questions. These are very fair questions. And the answers will likely dictate how the Brian Kelly era winds down at Notre Dame. How aggressive will Brian Kelly be in terms of the ramp up to 2022 and 23? I can't say it enough. There's no easy launching point for Buckner if he doesn't get a lot of playing time next year. His first start, theoretically, would be at the Horseshoe week 1 in 2022. Okay? So again, this all goes back to where are we at as a program? Good enough we could finally reload, or are we rebuilding? And we're patchworking this together for next year. To me, the quarterback position is what this is mostly about, but by no means is it limited to. To me, the sooner I find out what Buckner is or isn't, the better. That's just me. Easy for me to say, because I'm not a coach who doesn't want to lose some games by playing young guys where I think I could win the games if I play an older guy, even if he's a game manager and not the future. So I get that it's easy for me to say, but the sooner I find out what Buckner is or isn't, the better. He's Brian Kelly's last chance at an elite signal caller. He can't mess this one up, or the Brian Kelly era is going to fizzle away with ultra embarrassing losses to both Clemson and Ohio State multiple times each in 22 and 23. Not even mentioning anybody else on the schedule. Not even mentioning anybody else on the schedule. But just looking at those two teams, 4-game stretch in 2 years. So will Brian Kelly and Tommy Rees open up a modern offense, give young kids a chance to play and grow together? Or will Brian Kelly get conservative, play the older guys, and have a game manager quarterback in 2021? This is where it's critical that Brian Kelly knows his team. He has to know what he has, what he doesn't have, where everybody's at with their individual development, and what he thinks is feasible and realistic for 2021. Kelly's got to have a perfect grip on exactly where they're at to be able to gauge these decisions correctly to set up a launching pad for the final 3 years of his contract, 2 of which have extremely challenging schedules. That's the question. Regardless of who starts at quarterback next year, I need to see a more modern offense. Even if it's Jack Cohn, ultra game manager, I need to visibly see this offense is different, more aggressive, more vertical, more action and wide open space over the middle of the field. I got to see all that, even if it's Cohn and it's not Buckner because he's not ready. I still got to see that. I need to noticeably see week 1 next year in Tallahassee. I have to look at the offense and say, this looks different. This looks modern. I'm not saying don't run the ball with Kyron. He's awesome. Of course I want that. I'm not saying to not throw the ball to Michael Mayer in the flat and let him run around people. No. We need all that. And we need downfield vertical threats, action in space, all that kind of stuff. Got to get more modern on offense. No Notre Dame fan can argue that. Look at the results we've gotten doing it our way against the best teams we play. Make no mistake about it. You could win a ton of games doing it the way we've done it. It's just not going to put anything in the trophy case. That's the thing. You could win a ton of games doing it the way we've been doing it with the talent we have. It's just when you get to the point where it's serious about winning something that puts a trophy in the case, you have no chance doing it our way. So is the goal here at Notre Dame after a dozen years of Brian Kelly to just win a shitload of regular season games and everybody's happy? Is that the goal? I don't think that should be the goal, and I have a real problem with anybody who accepts that as the goal, especially after a dozen years. So, there's no doubt about it. Buckner was hurt because COVID caused him to lose his senior season. That hurt his development a lot. That's not Brian Kelly's fault. That's not Buckner's fault. It's what it is. It's just what it is. He lost that season to COVID, and that sucks. Okay? So you're going to have young guys on the line. You're going to have new guys in the secondary, wide receivers who I think have a lot of talent but have yet to realize their maximum potential, both due to maybe some of their own issues, off the field issues, scheme, a quarterback who can't stretch the field. Like, all those things are reasons that the offense couldn't stretch the field. It's not one reason. There's multiple factors involved there. Okay? So if they don't think Buckner is ready, I at least need to see Cohn running a modified offense to get that at least started as we go into the last few years of Brian Kelly. I just think the approach cannot be a scared conservative one anymore offensively. You just cannot run out there the same idea you did the last couple of years when you've seen proof it has no chance to work in the biggest games of the year with everything on the line. You just can't do that. So where is Brian Kelly's aggression level going to be with the approach here? Where's it going to be? How much is he going to push for change and modernization and new ways to doing things? Versus how much is he going to say, we went undefeated a couple times, won 10 games 4 years in a row. We're just going to keep doing that. You know how that's going to end. You can't do the same thing and think it's going to magically end differently. You have proof you can't get over the hump doing it that way. I'm going to have a real problem if Kelly gets conservative and just wants to win 10 games again, but nothing that matters. That's a problem for me after 12 years. It just is. I'm not here for that. I'm not here for that. I'm not, especially after a dozen years. I'm not here for that. Okay? So here's my biggest takeaway from the article, though. My biggest takeaway from the article is this. The title provides two outcomes. Another playoff run, and he goes through the schedule saying it wouldn't surprise him if we won every game. Okay? So you could debate whether you think that's realistic or not with all of our turnover. I don't know. I hope it's a reload and not a rebuild, but I got to see it first. I got to see it to believe it. And I've never seen a Notre Dame roster turn over this much under Kelly, and then we're great the next year. So forgive me that I don't buy into it till I see it. You got to prove it to me. But the article provides two outcomes. Playoff or play young guys and get experience. But in reality, there's a third option, a very realistic one statistically, and I think the one that I hate the most and like the least. The worst case scenario for 2021 is being conservative, starting Cohn, not modernizing the offense enough, if at all, and then you don't make the playoff. I am 100% not interested in this at all. It would be a 100% garbage, wasted year to me. We won't be in play for anything that matters, and Buckner won't be getting experience in a modern new offense. To me, that's the worst case outcome by far, is not getting the young guys you need experience at the most important positions and not reaching the playoff. That is a total wasted year. I don't care if it's 10-2 or what. Wasted year. Wasted year. It's a dozen years here. I'm looking for playoff wins or go away. Playoff wins or go away. I'm sick of it. Win playoff games or retire and let somebody else try. That's where I'm at. Dozen years. It's pushing my patience level, people. Oh, John, have some patience. It's a dozen freaking years. A dozen. So I've said it before. If it's Buckner and a bunch of young kids, I can live with the mistakes. It's about getting ready for those brutal schedules in 22, 23. hopefully making a real run in 24 when everybody's old, experienced, and ready to go. Okay? But if it's Cone, Kelly better know that he better know this is a reload, not a rebuild if it's Cone, and know for sure they can make it to the promised land. Otherwise, wasted year right down the crapper to me. I have no interest in playing Cone and winning 10 games. That does nothing for me whatsoever with where this program's sitting right now. Nothing. That would mean you win nothing, didn't develop your next quarterback, Cone leaves, and then you throw Buckner out there against Ohio State the next year, first game, and just say, good luck. That's the plan. That can't be the freaking plan. So perhaps some hybrid is in order, where Cone starts early, Buckner gets up to speed with what the speed of college football likes, and he takes over or finishes out the year. Or they find 4 games to play Buckner to preserve his eligibility so he's at least out there a little bit. But whoever it is, the offense needs to look different. That's the other thing. Whichever one of these guys it is, if we're running the same stuff as the last few years, forget the Brian Kelly era. It's going nowhere. It's going to finish nowhere. That's just a fact. It's a fact. You guys all watch the games. It's a fact. You can win a ton of regular season games doing it the way we've been doing it. It ain't good enough. It's not good enough. Okay? So maybe some hybrid situation is in order. I don't know. But the one thing I do know is Brian Kelly never gets his backup quarterback solid work, ever. They come in and hand the ball off when games are over. It's pointless in terms of development. He never lets them run the real offense. They run the ball, and then the game's over. You want evidence of this? And this was in the article, too. Last year, Clemson's punter threw more passes than both Notre Dame's backups combined. Get that through your head. Last year, Clemson's punter threw more passes than both Notre Dame's backups combined. Also, the only other Brian Kelly quarterback to get a start as a freshman was, ironically, Tommy Rees, coming in after a Dane Christ injury, I believe. So Kelly doesn't like playing them young, or he doesn't recruit or develop them young enough that they're capable of playing. Either way, that falls on him. See, that's the part of this that drives me crazy. Notre Dame will have a quarterback recruit, highly touted, whatever. I'm watching grainy YouTube footage of them carving up guys in high school. And then they get to Notre Dame, and then it's like they'll come out and say, oh, well, there's a learning curve and development and all this and that. And then people just kind of say, oh, okay, that makes sense. When I say, that's no excuse. That means you didn't recruit a guy good enough to play. How is that an excuse? When they just say, oh, the guy's not ready, he's got to develop, and everybody just accepts it. I look around the country and see freshmen playing right away at quarterback, winning big games. That's what I want. I'm not just going to blindly accept that the guys need to wait 3 years. So, Kelly's number one failure at Notre Dame's lack of quarterback eliteness. That's it. That's his number one knock against him. Even more than Brian Van Gorder or whatever else. The number one knock on the Brian Kelly era is lack of recruiting or developing an elite quarterback that can make every throw. And I'm sick of it. So, while this article provided 2 outcomes, pick your poison. The third option is being conservative and still not making the playoff. Worst case scenario, you accomplish nothing. You wasted an entire year. An entire year is wasted then. Brian Kelly needs to know what he's got in order to make these decisions. He's got to know what they're capable of or not. To me, Brian Kelly's last run depends heavily on what Tyler Buchner is. He's out of recruiting cycles with where his contract lines up. Buchner has to be it. If not, this is just going to flame out. It's plain and simple. It's going to flame out. You need elite quarterback play to win anything now. We haven't had it. Buchner's it. He's burned through a dozen other quarterbacks who left, flamed out, didn't make it, transfer, whatever. Buchner's got to be it. So I'm really antsy to find out what the approach is going to be, but Kelly really needs to have a good grip on this and a good feel of it. If he really thinks they could get to the playoff with Cone, and okay, but you better be right. You can't waste a year with a one-year quarterback who's just going to be gone and you don't win anything. That's pointless because you're giving a quarterback experience that it's never going to help because he's gone. He's gone. So it does you no good to have a game manager not make the play. It's a wasted year. I just hope everybody sees that. If you're not really going to win big, it's a wasted year. Play the kids. Play the kids. I need Buchner to be ready for the horseshoe in 2022. That cannot be his first meaningful snaps. It can't. You're setting the kid up to get killed if that's the case. So, I don't know, you guys. It's a really interesting philosophical debate about the approach, how aggressive they're going to be, what that new offense is going to look like. What if there isn't one? That's the other thing. What if there really isn't one and they're just going to run what they ran last year? Then this is all pointless. If your goal is winning anything more than a bunch of regular season games, then it's all pointless. So I'm on edge about how they're going to handle this. And it's a critical point where Kelly needs to know exactly what the ceiling is so that he can gauge what this roster needs to look like next year. So, really interesting article. Generated a lot of conversation, a lot of talk, a lot of arguing. I'm interested to see it. I need a reload, not a rebuild, but I'll only believe it when I see it. Talk to you later.